welcome back to another episode of A Little More Light. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I feel like we say it every time, but welcome back. We're
Welcome
glad that you
back.
are tuning in.
Yes. That's like our common start. You know how every podcast has their own.
Yeah, I feel like we could probably think of maybe something a little cooler to say or maybe something more thought out, but in all honesty, just welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dee. This is Kev, and we're here to talk about some things today. But before we get into that, Kevin, what our friends Zach and Tori actually do this on their podcast. They talk about their peak and pits a lot.
Nice.
I always think that's pretty cool. But I don't want to plagiarize off of them because, you know,
We don't want
everyone's
that.
got their own creative liberties. So since we're both short, Kevin, what was a high and what was a low?
Wow, that was really creative.
Anyways, what was a high in this last week for you? And what was a low?
Uh, a high of this last week was honestly, I was gonna say you're gonna say running. Yes, I'm gonna say running. But I had a really hard workout this week.
You did,
and,
yeah.
That basically where I had to hit a 9:20 pace for 6 miles straight, and I hit all six.
Good
And
job.
so it was a big confidence booster in my fitness levels
Oh, for
as
sure.
we approach.
Yeah. No, you have been
Like,
crushing the miles lately. I'd like to think that I've been a very good cheerleader
yes,
in the last little bit, making
absolutely.
your proteins, being out there, making some little signs for you. Go, Kev, go. Run, Kev, run. You know, we're so creative
Yeah, we had
today.
your cousins over this last
Yeah,
weekend.
my
And,
cousins are over and had them running with you, and
yep,
it was fun.
it makes a big difference. So that was definitely the high. The low is I am nursing a foot problem today.
Oh, honey.
And I don't know if it's because of that workout or not, but anytime you get like a pain in your foot or anywhere when you're in like a training block, you know it's gonna happen. But like this one just feels a little different than others. So you know, in the back of your mind, you just don't want something to turn into something greater. So nursing it, icing it, all that stuff. My dad jokes around with this London marathon. He says that he was gonna buy trip
Oh, yeah,
insurance,
travel insurance. Because he
and
wasn't sure if you were even going to make
yeah,
it.
if I was gonna make it, and now that's just in the back of my mind with this
You got to
injury.
prove
So
him wrong.
yeah, we're gonna take it slow maybe today and the next couple days. Get ready for a weekend long run, and yeah. So honestly, this week I didn't really have many lows. If that was really my only low,
That's pretty good.
so we'll take that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really good. And to circle back to what you said about how in your high for the week of your sprint workout,
Yeah.
it's really interesting because the day before Kevin like ran these super fast times, he did a workout and he did his run, but like ran. I was about to say you swam the
I did not
fastest.
swim.
I was
Heck no.
then blah, blah, blah. He ran like a really fast time, and we were talking about this idea of how you have to put your body into a position to be able to succeed before you actually succeed. You
Ooh,
know,
yeah,
like that could be a line right there.
that's a line.
Yeah, so
That's a
let me break that down for you. So
message.
your body is not going to know like what pain is like or what that type of exertion is going to take and how that's going to feel unless you tap into that beforehand. Like if you got a I don't know, if you're trying to go best time on a Wednesday, you're going to want to like tap into some of that critical crucial speed Monday, Tuesday if you want to have any hope of coming close to that, in my opinion, I
Yeah,
think. And we saw that play out with you
we did.
this week. So
That could apply to any area of your life
that
too.
really could apply.
So
I know, like in swimming, we had to swim fast in the morning if we wanted to swim fast at night. And that's not like a lot of people might think, like, oh, don't tire yourself out, take
yep,
it nice and easy. But you're not doing yourself any favors by going super easy and cruising through life and then all of a sudden deciding, hey, I want to really like go for it like right now.
absolutely.
Your body's just not going to be able to, I think, produce the quality that you're expecting
Yeah,
unless you tap into that more frequently. I think that's why people, and no matter what they're doing or what their profession is, great people tap into greatness often.
mm,
Right, and that's just kind of
what
something
all
that
the
I
greats do.
was reflecting on as you were saying that. It's just maybe that's something for our listeners just to take away, even this week. Think about
Yeah,
the things that you want to achieve and how are you tapping into those instead of like going super cruise speed or whatever, and one day hoping that you will get there. You actually have to put yourself out there
Yeah,
to get there.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back to my running thing, but in like a 6 days of training, like it's not all six of those workouts are like easy runs.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
like you definitely need um, a variety, and like you said, you need those workouts that are gonna push yourself. And even
Hmm.
something we were talking about yesterday too, it was like um, I have found, and not just in running, but in other areas of life, but I have found that, especially in running, like if I'm not getting myself to the time or in the time range that I feel like I need to be to hit that
Hmm.
goal, like I'm not going to ever get myself into that time goal, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, for
Like
sure.
if I say I'm gonna run a 10:08, but I really need to be running at a 9:40, and
Hmm.
like I started at 10:08 for a long run, but I'm never gonna get myself to be primed enough to get into that 9:40 range.
No, exactly. And that's the exact same thing of like you got to put
Yep,
yourself into that zone
yep,
if you want to even come close to achieving what you want.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so enough about me. How about you? What are some highs? You've been cooking it up in the kitchen this week.
Ah, yes, I have
So,
been
I
actually.
mean, what?
Chef D over here.
Yeah, Chef D's. These dishes are back.
Oh, that was a failed YouTube series back
Yeah.
in the day. Yeah, no, I've been cooking a lot. It's been really nice to be home, honestly. And I think having both of us home has been just such a sweet gift to be able to just do regular, normal life. And I've been saving a lot of recipes on Instagram. And like in your save folders, when you like save everything, but then you never actually go back and look at them. That's me. But I've taken it upon myself this week to and last week too, in the last little bit, to
Hmm.
actually cook the things that I'm saving. And some of them
Absolutely.
are good, some of them are a miss, some of them I've been able to do a couple times.
It's all right.
Um,
I feel like your Instagram recipes turn out a lot better than mine.
I mean, that is kind of true.
Yeah, I made like this spicy chicken. I don't even know what it was called.
On Valentine's Day,
Yeah, I was gonna make.
This was Kevin's meal.
This was my meal. It was gonna be some nice chicken sandwich. Like when you go on Instagram and you see those chicken sandwiches, and they have really good lighting, and they got the crunch and the ASMR and all
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
And I literally thought that's what I was gonna make, and then it did not turn out like that whatsoever.
No, but you were like super excited about it, and we're in this no spend month right now, and so Valentine's Day we didn't go out.
We did
We
not.
just ate and watched a movie, and it was fun. But he really tried his best. It was just not quite, I think, what you were
You know what?
expecting.
But we can perfect it, and we can try it again.
There you go. That's good. So
Okay.
I guess that's my high. Sure.
No, I
That's
mean, if it could be your high if it wants to
no,
be.
no. I think it is. I think it is. I like that. It's a good one. And I think my low is just that I have not been sleeping very well lately.
You have not.
No, and it's been really been one of those things where you wake up at like 2 a.m. and you're like wide awake and you just can't go back to sleep. And so I'll get up and I'll go and read for like an hour. I'll usually eat something because I'm hungry, have a bunch of water, and then go back to bed and I'll pass out for like 3 hours and then I just wake up tired. But then seem to pull myself together in the day. So
Yeah, you're doing pretty well in the day, but
yeah, my low would be like inconsistent sleep
yeah, we
pattern.
got to figure out your sleep.
Yeah, it's kind of maybe I need to take. Apparently, if you take magnesium, that helps.
Yeah.
But
So anyway,
a little magnesium melatonin duo, you know what I'm saying?
all drugged up.
Yep, pretty much. Anyways, so yeah, those are my highs and lows.
Nice.
So I think on the front, on the Cekanor front in our household, our lows aren't actually too bad.
No, they're not.
No,
Would you
nothing.
not fear our lows because we overcome them?
Oh my god.
Oh, and if you guys
Continue
didn't
talking.
know, that was the topic of our episode today, which is overcoming fear. Guys, we're gonna work on the transitions, but
You're gonna work on the
we're gonna work on the
transitions.
No, we're
If
gonna
you're
work.
watching online right
We're
now,
gonna
like
work on the
on YouTube,
transitions.
you can just see Kevin smiling and he's just looking at me to like cut in and say something. And I'm like, you're digging yourself into this hole. You dig yourself out.
No, I mean, you could have bad situations happen to you, and you can have experiences that aren't necessarily things that you
Hmm.
like a low, but at the same time, you can't live your life in fear of those things happening, or you can't live your life like in expectation or waiting for that next bad thing to happen. Like you have to live life, and when those things do happen, you have to overcome them.
Exactly. So I've totally missed if you even told our listeners what we're talking about today?
I said we're overcoming fear.
We are over. Okay, yes.
We,
There we go.
a
I'm
collective.
I'm tracking now. We thought today would be, as Kevin so eloquently described.
I thought it was pretty eloquent.
It was really eloquent. We are going to talk about fear because I think that is a very prevalent thing in our society, in our world,
Yeah.
especially even I think at all times, but in our current world right now, it's can be pretty fearful.
What do they say? Fear is like one of the biggest hinderers of growth. So I guess
No,
we
wow.
actually do live pretty fearful lives, if you know what I'm saying.
That's the worst sort of joke I've ever heard. Yeah, we're just fearful people if that's the case.
Yeah, that's the case. We live our lives.
Yeah, but on a serious note, though,
Yes,
that
serious. Back to serious.
fear does hinder growth. I think fear can be paralyzing. It can stop us in our tracks. It can inhibit us from living the life that God has called us to live.
Yep.
It can really just, I think, freeze us in time in some ways because fear also has the potential to help, like, not to help us, but to force. What am I trying to say? Fear has the potential to make us stuck and to look back on, I guess, life that in the past, like look back on our past and fear the future.
Yeah.
It has a lot of, I think, really lethal ramifications when we let fear into our lives.
For sure. I mean, like I think there's a difference between natural fear and unhealthy fear, and like a comfortable level of fear and like, okay, I'm fearful to jump off this cliff. Well, yeah, duh. Like that's a good
scary.
that's a good thing
Healthy
to have.
fear.
Healthy fears of that. But like I think unhealthy fear is the biggest indicator of when we are not living the life that God has intended us to live. Like
When you say that, do you think though that like life and say the calling God has on our life, if that's the direction we're going with this, that can still be scary?
it can be scary.
Yeah, and so do you think then, like, because I could still be pursuing everything that God's asking me to do and still be a little fearful, could I? Or no? What's
I
your
don't
opinion?
know, because like you look at what is it like 2 Timothy or something, and it says like God did not give us a spirit of fear,
Yeah, that's true.
but of
Yeah.
love,
Power and a
power, and a
sound
sound
mind.
mind. And so I look at that as like a big compass. Like you can be, I don't know if it's, see that's tough. It's like you can have maybe a level of fear, but
Maybe
then,
healthy fear, like you're saying?
yeah, but then find a way to not just hold that in and have yourself be the only like controller of that, but then maybe bring that to God. Because then you look at stories like Moses, and obviously like he had a big, you could say, like a big fear of doing what he had to ultimately do, right? And that's when God then gave him Aaron as his companion. But it's like, so I don't know. Your question kind of just threw me for a loop. What do you think?
Throw it back to me. I see what you're saying. I think like maybe the definition is like healthy fear versus unhealthy fear.
But what's the difference?
What
then?
was the difference? I think if you are, maybe if you are being, like if you have healthy fear, it's that you are a little nervous of what's coming. Maybe it's like something like fear of the unknown, like of what lies ahead, like just the things that we don't know that are coming. I think that we can always be a little bit on guard. But if that fear takes root and is leading us to feel unworthy, incapable,
That's good.
scared, if we're anxious, if we're depressed, if we are, just isolating ourselves, and if it is causing us to not continue moving forward, then that's unhealthy fear.
So unhealthy fear leads to maybe another emotion or another action that maybe takes you further away
Yeah,
from God.
because I mean, the Bible also talks about having like the fear of God.
Yeah.
And that's this like holy, reverent fear of that God is God, we are not. And then that there's that difference between of like God is just this supreme being, and he's just magnificent in all things. He's the holy of holies. But then, and then there's us. So there is that bit of like, like I what, like, there's that like, that
Yeah.
I don't even know how I would describe it. But it's like that I'm me. Who am I? You are God. This is crazy. And then there's that fear where it's more like um, it's negative, I guess. So there's like fear of God. So there's like that's a good fear to have, and then there is like the fear that keeps us stuck. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with
Yeah.
in today's world.
Yeah, it clouds your judgment. It makes you focus on your circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you focus on where you're stuck now.
Yeah, for
Doesn't
sure.
see the outcomes or the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it also isolates you. Like I think maybe that's a big
Oh yeah,
indicator of
for sure.
unhealthy fears, isolation.
Yeah, and like when you're not like sharing with your friends how you're doing, or if you are letting fear drive your emotions or your decisions. I remember a message from I think it was Transformation Church. This was years ago, but they Pastor Mike Todd said, "What he asked this question like, what is on the throne of your heart?" And if it's anything but Jesus, those things are gonna drive every part of your life. And so if fear is sitting on the throne of your heart, then fear is driving your thoughts, your dreams, your goals, your desires, your future, your like day-to-day living. Like it is controlling everything.
Mm,
And so that can be a really dangerous thing, which then can lead us, to isolate or to just feel really hopeless in a lot of ways.
that's really true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say on that?
Um, no, no. I mean, you look at um like time and time again in the Bible or in stories, and you see how like fear is a big, I don't know how to say it, but like fear plays a big role in these stories and the potential outcomes. But it's like the faith that characters have or these individuals have that overcome
Mm-hmm.
like your fear.
Okay, so then let's break this down for people. What are some practical things that we can do to overcome fear?
I would say first memorizing scripture.
Good. Sword of the Spirit. That's what they say. That's the word of God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just started to. I tried to pray the armor of God over Danielle once, and I think I forgot two pieces of armor or something,
Oh yeah.
and I just
Mm-hmm.
had that
That image.
image in my mind. Yeah, I would say that. I would say bringing others into your situation, so you're not fear living a fear-filled life without the support or I don't know what the right
Accountability.
accountability of others. I think
Mm-hmm.
would be another big thing.
Yep.
So like for you and I, not hiding certain things from one another.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a big thing like in like relationships in friendships, relationships, marriage, something that we've started to I've noticed in our communication is that when say like I'm afraid or something or I'm fearful of something, I do a lot better if I like let Kevin into that and I let him know like, hey, like this decision is really making me nervous or like I'm afraid of this of whatever it is. And when he actually like lets me feel that way and acknowledges like instead of saying like, oh, like don't be afraid, don't do this, or like you shouldn't feel that, when Kevin like lets me express that freely, all of a sudden it's like, okay, I've got it out in the open. This is how I'm feeling, I'm being honest now. How can we move forward together instead of, I think, suppressing like our emotions like that. And that's something that I've noticed that I think to bring this full circle really helps, like just what you said of overcoming fear is bringing people in to
Hmm.
that and really just expressing like if you are afraid of the future, if you are afraid of losing your job, if you're afraid of being single forever, if you're afraid of a family member being sick or passing away, if you're like fearful of those things, bring someone in and let them know. Because even just expressing your fears in a safe space gives you that opportunity to then release it. You both can bring it to the Lord and then you
Absolutely.
can move forward. But if you keep that in, that usually keeps you stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. The more it like you're back to what you said to me at the beginning of the thing, like you're burying yourself a deeper hole. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
The more and more you keep like fear inside of you,
Yeah.
like your fear needs. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
Fear needs a little more light.
Ooh, there you go. That's good.
But yeah, like you need to let the light shine on and expose the things that you are most afraid of.
Well, and everything that you bring out into the light, the darkness has no more power over it.
Mm,
And fear thrives in darkness.
exactly.
Right. And so the more that you can be honest, I think, with yourself and with a close accountability person, your spouse, a best friend, your parents, a mentor, the better off you're going to be. And they can help you bring that to the Lord as well. And even just like if you feel like uncomfortable at first to bring it to somebody, like start bringing it to God first,
Yeah,
and then bring it to someone else.
that's very true.
For sure. No, that's a good word.
What if has there been an area that you are comfortable sharing that you've
Been afraid of?
afraid of or overcome fear or are working through right now?
Yeah. I think, well, if we keep this relevant to today's time, honestly, the whole Canada US situation
Yeah.
has been super heavy on my heart. And I have found more often than not I've been a bit fearful of what the future is going to look like.
Yeah. That's it's a big thing.
No, it is. And so I think with like we might as well just get into this topic right now because I mean, it's all over the news. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. And it's like a very real thing for us. So I mean, like Kevin is American. I'm Canadian. We are waiting for my green card to move to America. A lot of Canadians are really unhappy with what is happening in the US. A lot of Americans are really unhappy with the dialogue and the rhetoric that's happening between both of our countries. And I think I know that I have felt very like afraid and stuck in the middle of this polarizing
Mm-hmm.
moment right now in the relationship between our two countries who have for the longest time have had so much peace between one another, have been allies between one another, but it is so strange to be stuck in the middle of this and waiting to move to a country that isn't really showing that they like yours.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's different and it's kind of heavy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and even sitting on this side of things, um, like now being on living on the Canadian side and then American side,
Mhm.
like it is a weird situation to be in, but also it's just crazy. And I think this can describe fear, but how quickly it can take over.
Oh yeah.
And like you look at what the general population is saying about the relationship now is completely different than what was said 6 months ago, a year
Mhm.
ago, right? And so, regardless of your political stance or something like that, but like my whole takeaway from this is like how quickly you can lose yourself in fear or animosity and live a fearful life because of something that someone says.
Yeah.
And so it's just wild, like how it can engulf you if you're not grounded
Mhm.
in an understanding of like what really
Yeah. Well.
matters. I think like we were at the Invictus Games like a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
which was an amazing experience. The opening ceremony was here, and it was obviously weird because it was happening in Vancouver, and when the United States walked in, like it was definitely
It's
it
quiet.
was quiet, and like there were some boos, like
Mhm.
there were some murmurs and things like that. And to be in a situation where the Invictus Games are for war veterans who have basically like given their lives and sacrificed themselves
Mhm.
to fight for their country, both Canadian and the
Mhm.
United States. But for those individuals to have to walk through a crowd that has
Has
different
big feelings
big feelings,
about
right? Like
this.
that
Yeah.
should be like a joyous moment for these individuals. And yet
Mhm.
it was awkward. And then, but what I love so much about that was that the athletes
Mhm.
of both the Canadian
And
and
the
U.S.
right.
side recognized that there's that this moment was bigger than anything that was going on and chose like both of the sides stood up and
Clap
gave
for one
clapped for one
another.
another
Yeah.
and gave each other like air hearts.
Mhm.
And I think that's the big like that's a huge symbolic gesture, but also reminds me of like choosing love over fear.
Yeah. And I think like, and then like the premier of BC, which is like, I think it's the
It's
equivalent
like our governor.
of your governor in the US. He got up and he said a really good unifying speech
Yeah,
of like how don't let the rhetoric of one person, dictate how citizens feel about citizens. And I think that was a really cool message to also just to be reminded of that it's not, people against people. It's just this really tense moment
for sure.
in time where both, I think, Canada is like asking for more respect and the US is asking for things. And it's just tense right now.
Hmm.
But exactly what you said, like, fear, the only way that you can overcome fear is with love. And the Bible says, I think it's 1 John 4 says, perfect love casts out fear. And because Jesus is perfect in absolutely everything, when he is in our hearts, when he is in our circumstances, when we invite him in to our fear, that will cast out every bit of fear because he is perfect love. And perfect love and fear can't coexist at the same time. And so, yeah, but that's really just been like a really interesting time, I think, in my own life. I think in our marriage, just having to have pretty
For
in-depth
sure.
conversations and hold space for the way that, Kevin feels about this, the way that I feel about this, letting, I think, one another be annoyed, be upset. That's been an interesting growing thing for you and I.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like definitely been, especially as we get closer to like the day in which we could probably go back to the
To the
states, right?
States,
Like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
we're a lot closer today than we were a year ago,
Yeah, and
and
we're a lot more in a divisive situation than we were a year ago,
yeah,
too,
in this
in
situation,
this situation. And I think if you guys listened to our podcast last week, we talked about prayer, and there was something really important about when you pray without ceasing and you pray about everything. And I think this ties in a lot with even just say this example of the divisions between Canada and the US and this whole tariff threat and war that's happening right now. Um, that when you acknowledge what you're afraid of in these moments, that is a prime opportunity to not say, God, take away all my fear, but to say, God, come into this and change this.
yeah,
Right. It's, I think as Christians, we can often think of like, okay, no, like I just need to pray away my anxiety. I need to pray away my fear. I need to pray away my bad circumstance. I need to pray away my depression. And then, God, take this away from me or give me this, give me this, give me this. But I think in a maturing faith, what that looks like to have a mature faith is to say, okay, I'm afraid. Why am I afraid? Okay, God, come into this. Help me understand this, and may your will be done in this.
yeah,
Like, if I'm afraid of our countries like fighting against each other and these, like, big, huge trading, this quote unquote trading war
yeah,
that's looming over us, then God, come into this trading war. Like,
yeah.
come
It's
into
good.
this, like, soften the hearts of our politicians, like, unite these people. And I think we often miss a very crucial opportunity to partner with God because we often say, take away my fear instead of come into my fear and do something about this.
Yeah,
And by doing that, we invite perfect love into our fear
yeah,
and that will eventually expel it, right?
yeah. I think like in Psalm 34, it talks about like I sought the Lord, and He
Mm,
answered me, and like He delivered me from my
from all
fears.
my fears, yeah.
And so, deliverance doesn't necessarily mean like the I believe deliverance doesn't necessarily mean like the tangible fear or the tangible situation is gonna go away,
Necessarily go away,
right?
yeah.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're how you said like how you respond to that situation,
Mm-hmm.
or how you're able to then become an offensive member against that situation, right? Through
Yeah.
prayer,
You can
like
fight
you can
with God
exactly,
on behalf of what has moved your heart because in all honesty, it is definitely moving the heart of God too.
yep,
Like God is not a God of division. He is not a God of injustice. He's a God of justice and of unity and of peace, right? It also says in scripture that the peace of God which transcends all understanding. that when we invite God into those moments, that his peace can actually transcend our understanding, so that if this doesn't go away, we can still be people of love and peace in the midst of this, because we've invited God into this to change like the circumstance.
Yep.
So no, that's really good. But yeah, that's definitely, I think, just to wrap this line of conversation up, it's been hard. I've been really frustrated with it. I think just having represented my country for so long,
It's true.
and being referred to as like the 51st state, and we like hearing things like we had like Canada has no chance on its own. It's so dependent on everything. Like, as one of the most disrespectful things I think I've ever heard, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I'm not okay with, but it is also an opportunity, I think, for me to trust God and to not be afraid of comments like that, but to invite him in to, you know, not get rid of my fear, but like to invite God in to help in this situation.
Absolutely.
Because I've been I've been not happy.
No, it's you have a right not to be. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Anyways, anything else you'd like to say
No,
on fear?
I think that's a good landing zone.
I think it is. Yeah, politics. We love it. There's always fear in politics. If it's bothering you, shut off the news. Stop listening to those things. If it's filling your mind up with too much fear, the mouth speaks what the heart is full of, as Jesus says. And so if you're speaking fear, if you're speaking worries and all this stuff, then you probably have a lot of fear in your heart. And so guard your heart, guard what you're watching, guard what you're listening to, guard what information you are taking in. And if it is controlling the way that you feel, act, or respond to people, maybe just take a moment to ask the Lord and to come in and help you with that.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah, this is going to be interesting times for sure.
Yep. But with God, anything is possible.
Amen. All right, Kev, send us out.
All right. Until next week. See you later.
Bye.